Hello, everybody. So, hello, LinkedIn, hello, Facebook. This right here, this is special to me for a number of reasons. Hi, my name is Linda Murray Bullard. They call me the business plug, and this is my special Father's Day edition. Like Sunday, I didn't come on because I was waiting until he was available in order to do this interview because this interview means so much to me on so many levels. I'm in Atlanta right now at a conference, but I wanted to make sure that this conversation happened because I want to encourage the fathers out there. This is Father's Day week, right? On up to Father's Day on Sunday. And so my special guest is my son, who is also the father of Chuggalugga. So you all have seen Chuggalugga on social media. For the last 3 years, Chuggalugga has been battling renal failure. And so because of that, Chuggalugga recently just had a miracle happen. And so I wanted to interview my son. We hear a lot about Black fathers not being involved with their kids' life, Black fathers leaving their families. And so for this Father's Day, I wanted to do something very different because my dad raised 5 of 6 kids by himself. He was 50 years old when my mom died, and she left him with 6 kids. And so he raised 5 of the 6 kids that my mom left him with. And that's what I'm used to when you talk about Black fathers. So this is my son. His name is Isaac Espy. So hey, Isaac.
Hello, good to be here.
Good. I'm glad you're here. And we're talking about Father's Day and how fathers stick and stay with their families. We're trying to dispel the rumor that our Black fathers don't stay in their families, don't support their kids, and all this other stuff. And so you, sir, have not only stuck and stayed with your children, but you also had a special needs child in your son, Darrel. And so introduce yourself. Tell them who you are and what you do.
My name is Isaac Espy. As my mother has said, I'm her son, the middle child of hers, right there in the middle. So I had the middle child syndrome and everything. But recently became relatively recent. My oldest is a 5-year old. Some of you may know her as Baby Sue, and then my 3-year-old son Chuggalugga. This is just being a father, fulfilling that role as I've been raised to understand it by all of my male mentors, from my pastors, my father, my brothers, my cousins. All the examples that was laid out for me, and also hearing about the things that my granddad did. I only knew him a little while as far as like having memories and being aware. I just knew him as my scapegoat. Whenever I get in trouble, we'll go to Granddad's house. But to hear stories about him, especially from my older brother, and from my mom, how he fulfilled that role and the thing, and stories growing up, and him making the best out of the situation, and just following that example. And that's what I'm doing now. Just making the best decision for the family. Uh,
I love
yeah.
that. I love that. And so let's talk about little Chuggalugga because a lot of people on social media, like thousands of people on social media, have been praying with us for Chuggalugga because he was born, with an illness. So let's talk about that.
Right. We found out very early that there was it was just one little hiccup that caused all of this. So there was just a blockage uh, in his urinary tract that caused a lot of that, of course, blocking urine, and then it backed up and then just damaged his kidneys. So that's what happened. So it wasn't anything genetic. They verified all that. And the big X factor was they didn't know how damaged his kidneys were until he was born, until he was
Mm.
out. So it was hard to determine, what to do in that situation. So for other than that, I mean, then there was the suspicion of him having small lungs because he didn't have that fluid in the womb. Um, but that later on became a non-factor. It's just there, but no, doctors haven't seen fit to really like treat it to do any treatments
Yeah.
for therapy.
Yeah, because
So
he was born on 100% oxygen, right? For a while.
right, right. He was heavily supplemented by oxygen for a while, and then he had to get that changed.
Yeah, yeah. And so he's had like respiratory illnesses like type A flu and different
Right,
other things that he's had to overcome
right,
and hospitalizations because you all started out in Chattanooga, which is where
right,
I am. And then you moved to Cincinnati.
right.
And so
But
why did you
let me get a pause real quick, okay? Be
okay,
right back.
sure. So while he's doing that, they moved from Chattanooga to Cincinnati because what happened is he actually there's not a infant dialysis center in Chattanooga, and so in order for little Darrell Chuggalugger, in order for Chuggalugger to get the treatments he needed, they had to move to Cincinnati to the Cincinnati Children's Hospital, which is one of the two hospitals that can handle the real specific illness. Like you would think in the United States, there would be one in every city, right? But there are finding infant dialysis is a rarity. And like even the illness that Chuggalugger, we call him, Darrell had, there's only like less than 250 kids that have had that blockage so that it ruined their kidneys and then caused them to need a kidney transplant. So yeah, so I was bringing them up to speed on Cincinnati, of you moving to Cincinnati to get closer to the rails doctors and things, right? I don't have sound.
That's probably my fault. There we
Okay,
go.
now.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so in doing that, then and Darrell's at home, you all. So Darrell got released from the hospital today, like this day. He's been in the hospital. He received a kidney. There he is. Hey, Darrell. Hey, Chuggalugger. he's talking. He's talking. He's saying something. Only nobody knows what he's saying. He's saying something.
Yeah.
But Darrell got out of the hospital today. He's wondering why am I? Why is he picking me up? Why is he putting me in front of this camera? That's what he looks like he's saying. But he got out of the hospital today, and that's why we moved our thing from 7 to 9 because you had to bring him home and get him medicated and do all those things
Right.
that he needed to have done. So let's talk about what that's like, the care that you've had to render from that day when he was released from the hospital, like after 50 something days, right?
Right. It was 6 weeks. I know
Okay.
that's the number I got locked in my head. It was 6 weeks. But it started off pretty rough because as soon as he was born, he was here. They immediately began to to give him therapy and medicine and everything, put him on oxygen and get everything done for him, and then they immediately took him to the NICU, and that was pretty much the worst day of it, really, because he was heavily dependent on like machines and everything, and keeping them sedated and keeping them calm. And then from there, he just kept showing signs of progress. So much so that at one point he ripped out a tube on his own,
Yeah.
within a few
Yeah.
days. So they had to, change things around. And from there, something will go awry. Like he had too much fluid at one point, and they're like, "Hey, if this doesn't fix on its own, we're gonna have to medicate him or do X, Y, Z for him." And then, the next day it just clears up on its own. So that's where he
Just a
got the name
miracle.
Darrel. Because every time they have a plan for him for something, he would just fix it on his own. I don't know. This is it's part of his how tenacious and stubborn he is. His will to live. Um, and throughout this whole process, because we were there, and we were during the pregnancy. We had doctors from Cincinnati Children's Hospital there. That was kind of overseeing things, and even though Vanderbilt was just 2 hours away, they still recommend we go to Children's. Just check them out because they know for a fact that they have an awesome program. They seen these cases all the time. So we go up there, and it's just a whole different demeanor. They do their testing and everything. Then they had a panel, and then the panel was like, yeah, everything. It don't look catastrophic. We're gonna get him when he's here. We're gonna get him on a diet so he can get big enough to accept adult Kenny. We put him on the transplant list, and then he'll have a happy life. After that, it's like, okay, cool. We want to stay near you guys in. Through this process. So that's what was happening at that point. We was taking 6-hour trips to Cincinnati for checkups,
Uh-huh.
and then something happened. They went up there for a procedure where they put some fluid in the womb and everything, right?
Uh-huh.
And then sometime shortly after that, there was a rupture that happened, and that's when my wife had to be hospitalized. Brenda had to be
Yeah.
hospitalized for
Yeah.
6 weeks, and then that's when they told her that after that 6 weeks, that he was going to he was going to be taken. They want to induce the labor 6 weeks early, and
Yeah.
then during that 6 weeks, that he was in the hospital. So somewhat he was released on his expected birth date around that area. If
Mm.
everything went along. But it was it was an emotional journey. It's just the fact that, given the situation, that he just continuously showed progress. So that kind of was a blessing by itself because it seemed like things were getting easier as the days went on. And
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you just held him up. And I have a picture here that we had posted about him when he was in the NICU here in Chattanooga, and how he had wires coming from everywhere.
hmm
They were doing all they can to keep him, sustain him. And then you moved to Cincinnati, where Cincinnati had more experience in infants with his condition. And so, seeing your son like that, your firstborn son like that, that had to be traumatic, right? I mean,
right. I mean,
yeah,
just seeing a child, period. It's kind of traumatic.
yeah,
Because they're innocent.
yeah,
This is how life started for them. But on the other side, though, we're thinking of it as what if kind of being introspective. Where we're saying what if my life was like that? But to him, that's all he knows. The kid still jumps around right now. I still have to watch out for him. Being adventurous and taking risk and jumping all over the place and risking hurting himself like any other 3-year-old boy would.
yeah,
So it's 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 a mixed. It's an awesome thing to see, and kind of it's humbling at the same time.
yeah. I can imagine. I could imagine. And so um you are really actively a part of, because um he had to be catheterized, right? For,
Right,
like, he's had different stages of. I remember at one point there was a hole that they left open so
right,
that he could use the bathroom that way. And
right,
for a while, and you had to do. I mean, he's been through, different little procedures when they find different little things, and they were very attentive to his numbers, making sure his numbers were right. That was a big thing, what he could have and what he couldn't have, what he could do and what he couldn't do. And
right,
so, and you've been there for the whole ride. I remember you coming home a few weeks ago, in fact, and he had to be catheterized 3 times a day. And I remember you just getting him and doing it and just being actively a part of his care, so that his mom is amazing. She's
right,
amazing, because, like, she was hospitalized before he was born because she wasn't producing fluid for him. And so they didn't want her to get infection. So she was hospitalized for 50 something days too, right?
right,
Like, yeah. So she was hospitalized. And then he comes out and he's hospitalized for a while. And all the while you've been attentive supportive of your family, which, Father's Day, that's what we think of when we think of fathers. And sometimes you guys, y'all don't get your due. We don't honor you the way we should, because you guys are in the trenches with the moms and making sure the children are fine. And if we had more of that, if we saw more of that, maybe this would be a better world, right? Because they would have the influence of both parents. And that's the thing, is this whole special was just to say happy Father's Day to you and your brother and all the men who are fathers. I wanted to do this special broadcast because I wanted them people to see that not all fathers leave.
Right.
Not our fathers lead. Like, you've been in the trenches and you do the care, and when he has to have something, I got to give him this. He's got to have this medication. He's got to have that medication. He's got to be catheterized. He got to be this. We got to make sure, you know, he's got this diaper over this hole, this gaping in his stomach. And
Right.
so now that he's had his kidney transplant, as of what day?
June 1st.
June 1st. Now that June 1st has come and he's been blessed to have his kidney transplant. So now you all are going into even another circle, another chapter of his growth, right?
Right.
Yeah. So this is going to get him. So now this here comes the whole potty training and all the other stuff that he didn't get to do, that he didn't get to do before. Now you're getting ready to start doing the normal things that normal little boys go through,
Right.
as far as potty training and all of that. I know that's going to be exciting, right?
Right. And what's crazy is the little things. Like, he's able to eat cheese now. You know,
Uh,
and being my son, he's gonna like he's
you love
love cheese.
cheese.
Yeah, I love cheese.
Love,
My daughter
you
loves
always
cheese.
love
He
cheese.
asked
Yeah.
for it. He's like, hey, I want cheese now. Now before it's like, no, you can't really have that. Now it's like, go ahead, son, go ahead, here you go.
You got the family tradition.
Yeah,
Let's all have cheese.
you got new parts now. We good.
That's something that small that most of us take advantage of, right? I mean,
Right,
you want cheese
right.
on your cheeseburger. Everywhere you go, they ask, you want cheese? You want to add cheese? And we're like, yeah, sure, why not? But
Yeah.
then little Darrell couldn't have cheese until June 1st,
Mhm.
when he got his new kidney. So
Right.
congratulations from you, to him, to his mom, to Brenda, to his sister. Because she always said, that's my baby. That's my baby. From the time he was born, she said, that's my baby. But
Right.
congratulations to you all. And I just wanted to put your family. I know now is okay. Now it's time to start paying the piper. And so he's still a part of CODA, right?
Right.
CODA is Children Organ Transplant Organization Association that helps parents like you all with funding their children's care. Like, because for a while his immune system is compromised, so he can't be around people and do a lot of things, can he?
Right. For especially with the first 6 weeks after surgery. After the transplant, they advised that he can't even should even go back to daycare. So they're doing he's getting the most like medication at this moment now, to kind of get everything stabilized and make sure uh, all the he has to lower his risk of infection basically. So
Mm-hmm.
he's getting a lot of medications now to prevent that while he's still recovering from the surgery and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
his body is accepting the new the setup that it has now. So
I
this,
love
yeah, one of the most vulnerable times as well. Because my understanding is as time progresses, he's going to need less medication and less dosage of the medications that he will be on. Even like going forward for the rest of his life, he won't need as much as he's needing right now. So
it.
there's still some. It's just another chapter, another change. Just like when we were preparing for another change. Actually, we was going to start doing peritoneal dialysis, which was like a light form of
Yeah.
dialysis at home. And we was preparing for that. And we was just saying, this is just the next step. Just like when we had to do the capping thing, that was the next step. When we had the vesicostomy, we had the hole in his pelvis. That was a change. It was just stages, things just progressing along as you go on the journey, to give him the best chance possible for success. So this just it's just one of those things. After a while, that's what you get comfortable with, is that there is no comfort, that
Mm,
things will change, and
mm,
it's a constantly changing thing. That's a good thing because it's progressing at the same time. So or if it goes worse, you're more prepared for it. If things happen, just like when we had this, the third time's a charm. It was the third time at bat at a possible kidney situation. And so we had to deal with those changes. Getting ready, you get your hopes up, you can't help it. And then you get disappointed.
yeah,
Those were changes. Going back and forth with that. So
yeah,
it's a I mean, the way I see it, that's kids in general though. Even with my daughter, there were changes with her. She had a few minor uh, therapeutic sessions she had to go through now, and now she's still a healthy kid now, but still she has changes. She still
yeah,
grows. There's she don't just stay one way forever. Kind of the the weird thing about Facebook gives you those nostalgic posts that you had years ago, and
yeah,
there's this one post of her when she was just walking and talking, and she was just saying hi and closing the door. She's not that little girl anymore.
yeah.
She's
No,
had
she's definitely
several,
not.
yeah, she's had several changes since then. So that's what progress is constant changes.
Yeah,
So you just have to accept the changes and adapt. That's what that's what makes us great, is that we adapt to the situation. We get that's what we all want, is new normals.
right, right, right.
One way or
Absolutely.
another.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that things do progress for the good, right? Things are
Hmm.
going progressively well. And so that's always what you want to hear. And so I won't hold you overly long because I know you have to get back to him. I know he's probably ready to play. So, but if you were to leave some advice to another young father whose kids need special care, what would you say to them?
I say, um, make the decision. Make the now what I mean by that is the internal identity decision. I ran across, just stumbling around, learning things online, stumbled across one concept that after 26, our brain no longer accepts like core changes to our personality. At that point, it only takes trauma to a traumatic event for us to make a change in who we are as far as our identity. Once we identify a certain way, our behaviors are then that's where our internal change really takes place, is when we change our identity. So when you accept the fact that this is your identity, you're like me. I'm a father of a child with end stage renal disease. You know, then then it don't become it's just less resistance. Is all I can say. Like you said, I just woke up. It's my routine now to wake up. I'm not a morning person. My mom can tell you that. I hate waking up before 10 o'clock. I hate it. It's just not me. But when that alarm goes off at 5:30 in the morning, it's like autonomous. Like I get up, I come in here, I set everything up to give him his morning meds and get his day started, and then get my day started right after that. It's just part of who I am. It's second nature because that's
Mm,
my identity. It's part of who I am, and
mm,
so being a father, that's our first child. That's a traumatic event emotionally. I understand, for women it's different, but for men, especially responsible men, it's a traumatic event. You feel this like tsunami of responsibility hitting you at once, and so at that point you make a decision. I didn't know it at the time, but I made an identity decision that I'm gonna be the father to my daughter. I'm gonna be a father. Period. I'm gonna be a father. Then the next traumatic thing happened was finding out my diagnosis for my son, and that was another identity decision I made for him, that I was going to be a father to a child with his condition, and I was going to do what's best for him to get him the best quality of life possible. So that's
mm.
just what it's about. Just every day waking up, making sure he has the highest quality of life possible.
I love that.
So that's really what it takes as far as internally for men, and at the same time externally we have to have an environment that um, encourages that behavior. So when we have systems out here that are weaponized against responsible, duty bound men, and trashing them, that's abuse of the system. And so
Mm,
we have to be careful of that as well, because a lot of that we know that's going on. We know there's people out there that are abusing the system, and that can cause widespread trauma to a community, no matter where you are. So people have to make long term decisions, um, and not just go for the short term game, or be selfish. Because I want referring again, I was listening to this millionaire one time live in front of my face, sitting in the stage with him, listening to him. He's saying that his priority is God, family, business, and so that seemed to work for him very well. So that's kind of like how I go about my decisions. So, but a lot of people have the different order of how that's prioritized. Some people put their own personal business before their family, if they
mm,
even have a family. So that, and you can see that you you know you can see the fruits of that priority, how those priorities work out. So
mm,
we also have to have an environment too. The cliche, it takes a village to raise a child, right?
right.
I would add to that it also takes a village to maintain an adult.
Mm.
So if the village does not, have an environment that's conducive to productive adults, then you're gonna have, disintegration. You're gonna have a decline.
I like that because what happens is if there's no pull up people in your circle, be it male or female, if there's no one to check you and to tell you when you're wrong, as well as applaud you when you're right, then you tend to have a false sense of bravado that everything you do is okay. And that's just not the case. We're human, we're set to err. So having people that can have honest conversations with you about your priorities, about your responsibilities. Darren, my youngest, your younger brother, talks about all men need another man who can keep him in check, to mentor him, to
Hmm.
help him make decisions that are tough. And a lot of guys, they don't have that because everybody in their circle is doing exactly what they're doing. So they feel like it's okay. But when you do have another male checking another male, then the outcomes are so much better. Because if you have somebody that will pull your coat and say, dude, this is not it, it kind of brings you to awareness that, oh, wait a minute, I'm out of pocket, I'm out of character. So I think that's a thing too, like the mentorship of a dad. I love that you said you've learned from the men who are in your circle of influence,
Right.
because that's what yeah, absolutely. Our listener said accountability. Like you need to have somebody that's accountable. All of us need to be accountable to somebody. We like to say that we're this rogue person doing our thing by ourselves, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. We need to be able to be accountable to somebody, you know?
Right.
We need to all be accountable to somebody. And they need to have, you don't need a yes man corner. When you're wrong, somebody needs to say, dude, you're wrong. And when you're right, again, they need to celebrate that and applaud you for that. That's how we get there. Hello, whoever you are. I can't see you haven't accepted. You're on Facebook. You haven't accepted the so we can't see your name.
Yeah, I
But
see a cousin in there though.
okay, okay. Hey there, Louise. But yeah, but we thank you all. But again, we came on with this Father's Day special edition just to talk about, fathers who are sticking by their families and even in special needs situations, right?
Hmm.
Because those are the stories. Hey, Susan, those are the stories we don't get to hear. We don't get to hear about the positive role models and the guys that are out here accountable. So thank you for your yes. Thank you for coming on your mom's show. Thank you for coming on your mom's show because this is not what you do. But and you're like my most introverted son. And so for you to do this is, I know, way out of your comfort zone. But thank you, because I hope that this broadcast blesses some young father who feels like they're in it by themselves or who's trying to figure it out. I hope this Father's Day that all dads feel loved, honored, and appreciated. And if you haven't said I love you to your father, I hope you'll pick up the phone and do that. Even if there's been misunderstandings and disagreements, we only get one set of parents that are biological. And so we need to definitely, we need to definitely try to make certain that we are honoring our fathers this Father's Day.
Right. And
So,
two things I would like to say is
oh, go ahead, by all
thanks to
means.
thanks to my father Melvin Espy, who's my son's namesake. Thank you for always being there. You know, in the maximum capacity as always, being an example and pretty much my motivation. My fathership is a tribute to his fathership, what he's done for me. And
I
then
love it.
secondly, send all your prayers and positive energy to the family that lost one, so that my son can be blessed. They
Yeah,
won't tell us much of it because HIPAA laws and everything, but the most I gathered from it, it was a 17-year-old kid.
yeah.
So please, please, you don't know where your blessings come from, but I definitely don't want to make light of what another family had to sacrifice so that my son can have a better chance at life. There's not enough words I can say about that.
That's honorable. That is very honorable. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So I will see you guys on Sunday, Father's Day. And Sunday, I'm bringing Dominique Sanders from the Main Street Alliance is going to come and talk to us about some things that are going on in business. But thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're watching this on the replay, please put hashtag replay. And I'll see you next Sunday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time here on the Business Plugs Mixer. You guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you there.
All right, y'all be blessed. Thank you.
Bye bye.